Let's speak to Rob Plummer, who's a senior meteorologist at the Jersey Met. Can you just talk me through really how bad things have been, because this is quite unusual, isn't it, for the Channel Islands overnight?
Yes, absolutely. Now, I personally, I was on shift as a weather forecaster here at Jersey Met last night, finished at 10 p.m. and the wind had really started to ramp up by then. So your previous callers speaking about zigzagging around the roads, that's how I had to get home, dodging branches and knowing that it was going to get worse. It was a case of getting there as quickly as possible. But now I can't get into the office myself today because a tree is blocking me into my house, so I'm sort of doing everything a bit remotely. As such, I can't get my hands on all the statistics that you might want, but I've certainly heard all about the strength of the wind reaching 102 miles per hour as I think the highest recorded gust. There's the video evidence of a tornado briefly occurring with one of the thunderstorms that also produce very large hail, more akin to what we get on the continent in mainland France in a summer thunderstorm, where we regularly see golf ball size hailstones there, but we don't tend to get them here, especially in the cooler months of the year. So yes, it's really been a very damaging storm, but unusually well forecast in this case. All the various computer models that we tend to look at from Europe, America, the UK Met Office, they all seem to be telling the same story with, the same sort of placement of this low pressure system and the intensity of it. Usually there's a bit of uncertainty. The different models tell a different story, taking it on a different track, different timings, etc., and we try and find the line of best fit that we can give the best forecast. In this case, it was quite easy, to be honest, because they all sang from the same hymn sheet. Really, when it started to show its face about 5 or 6 days ago, so that enabled us to pass on the message to all the people to make the right kind of plans. You can't stop the weather from doing what it does and the damage, but you can be ready for it and have the message out there. So I think it's been a blessing in that respect.
Yeah, and there was this red warning, wasn't there? The highest warning that there is in terms of the danger to life and the disruption that could be caused. Where is it now in terms of that warning? Is that finished, or is it still red?
You'll have to forgive me. I've been
put you on the spot there.
A bit busy with some
sure.
Some interviews like this one myself this morning, so I haven't been able to monitor what my colleagues back in the office, whether the warning is still at red level or has been downgraded. I know that if it hasn't been downgraded yet, it's due to shortly. Certainly the wind has abated now. It's still very strong, but really the danger now out on the roads is the fact that a lot of the roads are impassable. A lot of the trees have been damaged, and perhaps branches are still yet to fall. Damaged buildings and so on are dangerous. I think that's where the danger comes from now. A few hours ago, the danger was in the weather itself, whereas now it's the aftermath of the weather.
So it is easing now, is it? It does feel like the worst is over, yeah.
Yes, it certainly is. I mean, I, like just about everybody, even with my sort of Met knowledge, was pretty terrified last night, to be honest. The sound of it and the knowledge that my family, my children would also be kind of hearing these noises like your roof was about to get ripped off. It's scary. Hardly anyone, I think, got more than a couple of hours sleep last night. Anybody who did was blessed. And now I just feel that the sense of fear has really abated. Daylight helps massively, but also the winds have started to come down a lot. We can sort of see a clearer picture out the window, can actually sort of see the sea in the distance now and the huge waves. Before it was just a blur of horizontal rain.
Right, things are getting better. Well, thank you very much for talking to us. I really do appreciate it. That's Rob Plummer, Jersey, and the state of the roads and the like. Talk us through how things are in Jersey today.
Yeah, I just want to show you that one of the main routes to the west of the island. Now, if you have a look here, you can see that really large trees have just fallen into the main road, making it really, really difficult to pass. A few cars are attempting to, but it is much, much quieter than normal, and that is because the advice very much remains to stay at home. You can also see in the background there, here we have another vehicle trying to get through there, and just over there you can see some of the drains which are blocked by leaves from the trees, and this is a real concern that will start to build up, and the next problem could be flooding. Now, the worst of the storm has passed. I mean, the early hours we saw winds of up to 102 miles an hour, and they were really, really strong, really powerful. It was a really pretty astonishing evening, to be honest. But now the focus is on the clear up and the fallout. We know that dozens of islanders have been evacuated from their homes due to damage. They're now staying in hotels around the island. We know that schools are closed, the hospitals are closed, except for emergency procedures, and people are being asked to stay at home. So that advice very much remains. But I mean, you know, now that it's light, we can see just how much damage this storm has caused overnight.
Yeah, and Jersey really cut off, no flights in and out, no boats, no boat services going on. And in terms of the roads, it really is a difficult situation. But I suppose for now, people are listening to those warnings and staying at home. And we were talking to the Jersey's Met office earlier, and they were saying that really it is improving. The situation is really improving in terms of the weather. So I suppose that's the positive now, that it gives people a bit of a chance to clear up.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there was a bit of forewarning before this storm, so people had chance to prepare. There were sandbags lining the sea walls last night, but there was a lot of stockpiling. As you mentioned there, it is a small island, it's very isolated, and quite often when we see bad weather and bad sea conditions, the boat doesn't get in, and the freight boat has stopped partially this week. So I think there was a lot of concern over supplies and being in this isolated community and not getting access to food coming in. But having said that, authorities do seem to be getting on top of things. There are emergency operations underway to make sure that the roads are cleared up and people are as safe as possible. But that said, we have seen people's homes destroyed. We've seen the hospital roof being damaged, and that will take a lot longer to help solve.
Thank you very much. I've been speaking to Andrew Gilham, the National Operations Manager at the Environment Agency, to ask him about the picture for across the UK.
It's quite a wet and wild morning out there, as you've been discussing with your viewers. Certainly, the winds have been the focus, I think, of much of the news and the damage that we've seen. Our priority has been, and our concern has been, the rain that has fallen with that wind. We saw a lot of rain fall over the last few weeks, which resulted in quite a lot of flooding. As a result, the ground is saturated, and so any rain that is falling now and will fall through the day will run off land quite quickly and flow into the already swollen rivers. So currently we have 68 flood warnings in force across the country and a further 174 flood alerts, which means that flooding is possible. So, you know, I would urge anybody who is thinking of going out and about to listen to the advice of other emergency services and the Coast Guard, particularly near the sea, and seriously consider your own safety. Certainly when you're driving, we will expect to see quite a lot of surface water flooding. Now, driving through floodwater has its own risks, and I would discourage anyone from doing that. If the water's deeper than about a foot, cars can start to float. So, you know, you can't see what's below floodwater, and you can't see how deep it is. So, you know, please don't drive through floodwater. And even for pedestrians, you know, floodwater has its own hazards. You can't see ditches, you can't see drops that you would ordinarily see, and manhole covers can get removed. So just by the pressure of the water. So please take extreme care if you're out and about. Our teams in the Environment Agency have been monitoring the situation around the clock for the last few weeks. We will issue more flood warnings as we need to throughout the day. And particularly as we see high tides coming in along the south coast and up the east coast through the day. We do expect to see large waves on the coastline, and whilst our teams have been out repairing our assets and looking after them to make sure they're ready for the storms, they have had quite a sustained period of attack from the weather. So, we are doing our bit, and we'd encourage the communities to do their bit too.
We did have quite a bit of warning of this, did we?
We did. The Met Office have been forecasting bad weather. That enabled us to plan not only internally, but also, with our colleagues across the emergency services and local authorities. As a result of that, I think we're in a good place. Our teams are out keeping the rivers as clear as we can, making sure all of our flood defence structures are operating as well as they can. Clearly, with strong winds, we do see debris, trees coming down, branches falling off and ending up in rivers. Those can increase the risk of flooding as a result of blockages. So again, if anybody is out and about and sees any blockages, then please report them, and we'll do our best to remove them when we can, when it's safe to do so. But also, anyone who's concerned about the risk of flooding can check on the internet on gov.uk, where there's lots of very useful information about what to do before, during and after a flood event. You can also get the latest on our flood warnings on there as well. If you don't have access to the internet, then you can call the floodline number, which is 0345 988 1188. We'll continue to monitor the weather and the impacts as a result of the rain that falls, and we will issue any further flood warnings as we need to throughout the day.
The drainage systems are so important, aren't they, when incidents like this? So how prepared is the UK in general for weather events like this, which are all too often these days?
Well, an awful lot of work goes in, both in the short, medium and long term, to make sure that as a nation across England, we are on top of managing flood risk as best we can. We have to prioritise our investment to those communities where flood risk is greatest, but it isn't something that the Environment Agency can do alone. We very much work in partnership with communities, and other public sector organisations, because it isn't just about building flood defences or maintaining flood defences. It's about warning and informing communities, helping people make correct longer-term decisions, and that's why we have a long-term flood risk strategy in place for the country, which very much all the work we're doing today is fitting within.
Now, what about the driving conditions at the moment, in terms of, you were talking about the surface water that there is? People are still going to go out, aren't they? There will still be people taking to their cars today because they have to. Is there any advice that you can give people about the best way to cope in these conditions? Well,
I think from what other organisations have been saying this morning, if you don't need flying debris, it can be particularly hazardous. Like all good drivers, I would recommend slowing down, when road conditions are wet, particularly this time of year, with leaves on the road, stopping distances are greater. So, just ease off a little bit. If you don't need to go out, don't go out, but plan your journey, check in with local radio, check on the internet, and take your time and plan for the worst and hope for the best.
It's absolutely battered these islands relentlessly overnight. It's kept everyone here awake, and some people have had a really rough night. I've been outside one of the hotels where people have been evacuated to. We know there are around 40 people who've had to be moved from their homes because either the roof's been ripped off or the windows have been smashed. There were really heavy hailstones at one point in the early hours of the morning that were doing damage, and we know there are trees down, blocking roads across Jersey and Guernsey. These islands are effectively today going to be cut off. There are no flights whatsoever from Jersey or Guernsey, commercial flights at least, and no boat services either. So that had caused some concern that perhaps supplies might start running out, but the island authorities have tried to reassure people. They've said they will be able to get medical flights in should they be needed, The hospital here in Jersey is still open. We're not sure if it's had to take many patients yet, but there is a concern the roof of the hospital could be at risk. So all sorts of issues for the authorities here to deal with, but they say the strongest of the winds has now passed. It was recorded at 102 miles an hour at 5 a.m. this morning, but conditions are still really tough, so the message is that people should still be at home until really the worst of the storm has blown through.
To Storm Ciarán, which is affecting large parts of the country at the moment. We're getting a lot of videos sent into the BBC News on the aftermath of that storm. We can show you this from Jersey. It's a street called Princess Place. You can see the damage on the roofs and the windows on people's homes that have been smashed. There's a lot of debris in the streets, including bricks and branches which have fallen off trees. The island was, of course, one of the worst hit overnight, with gusts of up to 100 miles an hour. You can already see from this video that the residents have been boarding up their broken windows. We can speak now to one resident, Eric Royb, who is a farmer who's been out this morning trying to clear roads blocked by trees. You're in Jersey, of course. Talk us what it's been like for you overnight.
It was particularly horrendous around midnight. Massive hailstones hit us. There was a small tornado passing through, and hailstones the size of golf balls and bigger hit us. So it's a lot of glass breakage and whatever you. The main storm hit us sort of starting at 4 o'clock in the morning.